Welcome, everyone. I am without my awesome co-host tonight, who kind of keeps our bells and whistles going and does all the awesome behind the scenes work with the pictures. But we are going to do a sanctuary mini tonight. This is episode 27. It is June 20th, 2022. And yes, I forgot the greetings and love. How could I forget? Greetings and love. I feel like I'm stealing his mantra. But Tom is here in spirit, and I'm going to do my best to hold space without him. So tonight we don't have uh, the awesome slideshow that we normally have of our pictures that we've taken throughout the week. So this is going to be more of an audio version, and you may see people's pictures coming up throughout the recording. So I'm not sure exactly how to turn that off. So we are just going to roll with it tonight. And the light transmission when I went into spirit, and when I say for those listening for the first time that I'm going into spirit, I am speaking to what I call the Holy Spirit or Great Spirit, the part of God which is outside of us, but also moving through us, that has the eagle eye perspective, the wide open view that when we're in this, linear human personality matrix, we may not always see it, maybe just a little bit too close to our face. So I go into spirit to kind of get this broader perspective of what is happening, which then helps me to stay out of victim consciousness. And what I bring through, I then share with others to kind of help us all stay in that spiral or in that vibration of truth and embodiment that really brings us power and strength here, as well as connection and community, because often when we are not in that place, we are withdrawn and we are isolating. And so tonight, Spirit brings forth this transmission that how we are shifting our agreements. If you have been following Sanctuary in the past, you'll know that the most recent calls have spoken to this time of healing that we have been going through both individually and collectively. And I know many people have been going through physical healings and mental and emotional and spiritual, what we might call upgrades, although on a physical level, it may look like illness or sickness, what we might call the third dimensional or third density. But through these processes, we are actually shifting our point of reference, but we're also shifting our DNA and our bodies, our crystalline structure. And Spirit often talks about that of moving from Homo sapien to Homo luminous. But in doing so, we're beginning to have to shift some of our agreements. And the dictionary defines agreement as harmony of opinion or an arrangement between parties, usually resulting from a discussion. And anybody who's kind of been following along in the outer physical world will know that for some time, but particularly in the last 2 years, there has not been a lot of harmony of opinion. And there has not been a whole lot of arrangements happening due to discussion. A lot of discussion has been censored or removed or omitted or taken offline, or simply just not been able to happen because we have been isolated and in our own kind of cocoons in our own spaces. And so Spirit is asking, what is this time of healing brought forth, and where are we shifting our agreements? So before I go into kind of what Spirit brought through, I want to open the floor to anyone who wishes to speak about where you might be shifting agreements or where you might be noticing some of these shifting agreements occurring out in the world. And if no one has anything to say, that's totally fine as well. Spirit speaks right now that we are shifting agreements on a collective level through an overhaul of our systems. This is financial, our academic and educational institutions, our religious institutions, the entertainment industry, the government, the military complex. All of these systems are, from Spirit's perspective, literally already dissolved. But from our perspective, they are disintegrating. And there's a bit of anxiety or this fear plus confusion that is happening right now, which is causing people to kind of want to plug back into the old systems, that which really is no longer serving us. And instead of opening to our own spirit, opening to our own soul, and recognizing that we creatively and together have already brought forth the new systems and the new solutions that are coming into place within this new earth reality. And so as we shift these agreements, we are going to find that we're shifting these agreements within our own personal lives, but we're also going to see these outer structures begin to change. And Spirit says that for a while, it's going to look very polarized. It's going to look like one of those pirate ships at the amusement park that's going one way and then it's going the other way, and it's making us sick in both directions. And what we're being asked to do is to not cling or not attach to what was, but instead to be open to being the scouts and to being the visionaries of what is coming next. And so Spirit asked tonight, what are some of our collective agreements? And does anyone have anything that comes to mind? What is something that we are collectively agreeing to right now? This is where you need Tom, because you know he'd have like 6 in the bullet right now. So I will just go with, oh, we got somebody. We got somebody.
So what comes to mind for me, this is Heather speaking, by the way, is sort of all of the collective agreements that started coming up in regards to what was considered acceptable regarding as far as health safety. There were collective agreements happening there, although it was very polarized.
Absolutely. Yeah. And continues to be. Feels like that is definitely part of the big dismantling right now. Hold on, I am just shifting my view here. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm figuring this out as we go tonight. But you're totally right, Heather. We are not in a harmony of opinion around what has happened over the last 2 years. It's hard to put 6 people in a room and have everyone agree that how everything went down was exactly how it should be. And from Spirit's perspective, we on a human level are like, man, like all we see is how much like disagreement there is. But when I was in meditation today, Spirit was like, what about the collective agreement of choosing to stop at red lights and stop signs, and how everyone pulls to the side of the road for emergency vehicles? And, allegedly we have the ability to vote and participate in the process of our elected officials. And that is a collective agreement. And Spirit saying, just even using currency or money for goods and services, or using banks, choosing to buy our food, all of us from grocery stores. These are all collective agreements that Spirit is saying over the next 10 to like 20, 30 years, we are going to be really examining to see, are these serving us at the level of soul, or are these, part of that predator prey reality that is simply just trying to profit over itself until it basically extinguishes itself. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what some of our personal agreements are, because I know for myself personally, I've had to shift over the last couple months how I operate in certain ways, because those agreements were no longer serving me. And it was more habitual to just be in this pattern than it was necessarily to tune into what my body, my mind, emotional, mental needs really were in that moment. And Spirit speaks to these personal agreements as roles that we have established within our personal, our family, and our romantic partnerships, as well as our career relationships and responsibilities. And we're asked right now to really reflect what agreements are being called to shift individually for us, and what agreements are being called to shift collectively. And here, Spirit spoke to the fact that humans have been relying on this energy of codependence for a very long time. But in order to truly express our souls and our sovereignty, we need to move to interdependence. So this is not independence where we are, on our own, completely sovereign, needing nothing. But this is not the codependence of feeling like we're going to be lost or clinging to another because we believe we need them, or on the other side, are enabling another person because we don't think they're able to do something for themselves. And so this is all kind of coming into our faces right now, Spirit is saying, so that we move from this frequency of codependence into interdependence. And Spirit speaks to the collective shifting from the lower fourth density, where we're facing our fears, our anxieties, and our traumas, and we're moving into higher fourth density. But it does take courage and the willingness to co-create with our higher mind. And once we begin doing that, we start talking about weave, which is something that we bring up often on these calls and in our groups, because it's Spirit's word for how our interior realms are interacting with what we might call the mundane, but when we start tuning into it, the very magical, ordinary world. And so when we enter this higher fourth density, we're moving out of that nightmares energy. We're moving more into that dreamscapes energy where we have the ability to vision our life and to ask Spirit for a vision of our life so that we can begin co-creating with this higher divine mind. And that automatically shifts us into what we would call fifth density, or the frequency in which our thoughts immediately become things. And we can often get concerned, like, why am I, not like raising my vibration or expanding my consciousness, in this way? I want to be in like fifth density, and Spirit's like, you do, but you don't, because if you're there, everything that you are thinking is going to be manifesting right in front of you. So you want to be a master of time and space to some degree. You want to be a master of your own emotional state, your own mental state, before we cross that bridge into the fifth density, because we don't want to be bringing some of that lower vibrational baggage along. And normally we would not cross into this density until we leave the physical form. And in the death is when we shift, is when we lose that density. But we are actually now being encouraged and challenged to do that in our physical forms. So we are shifting into fifth density, once again, the frequency in which our thoughts immediately become things. And we must work through our personality matrix and our soul traumas, which will be presented to us in the third density, in the third dimensions, as well as the lower fourth dimension and densities, in order to allow us to cross this bridge of consciousness into the interior realms of the soul. And once we are in the interior realms of the soul, not only are we being guided by weave, but we are able to act as weave. And Spirit said this does not require endless focus or examination, simply allowing our personality and soul woundings to rise to the surface, express themselves as a hurt child might, embrace them, and integrate them into the larger fabric of who we are. So one of the kind of trip ups on some of these spiritual reflections is we can kind of go in these endless spirals of focus and self examination. And Spirit is saying instead, just give it 90 seconds, like give it 90 seconds of like a child coming to you saying like, my knee is so bad, and you as the parent can see it's just a minor scrape, but obviously that child is having a much grander experience. And so we're going to allow that experience while holding space for the true reality, which is with a little bit of a kiss and a little band-aid, all will be well and everyone will be back to playing. And that is how it looks and it feels from Spirit's perspective. So I'm going to give a moment now to allow anyone to have some words, anything that you would like to say. Otherwise, I will move on to the next piece. Oh yeah, 90 seconds. That's hilarious. So the 90 seconds, Mimi just shared that she shared this in her horoscope today, and you should all check out Mimi Clark at oh my God, Guy, why am I not Guy Blooming? Oh my gosh, Mimi, you gotta help me with this. But yes, this 90 seconds, a good friend of mine actually taught me this a couple of years ago when I was having a really hard time moving these emotions while I was in public with people. I was trying to have dinner, I was trying to have a conversation. And at that time, I didn't understand that I could just kind of go deeper and allow Spirit to move through me. And so I was having some of these bigger, like, feelings around this. And she was like, I've learned that if I just give something 90 seconds, Like it will move through me. And so, since I received that piece of wisdom, I've always shared that piece of wisdom because it really does work. And of course, those 90 seconds can feel like, 75 years, but there is a sense of like waterfall and a release that happens just from giving it the time and also just letting it go, also being done with it when the moment passes. So thank you for that confirmation out there. So we're being encouraged from spirit to no longer voice a problem if we are not willing to discover a solution. That otherwise we're just staying endlessly in a victim martyr spiral. And it brings to mind a time in 2012 where spirit said to me that I needed to ask people before working on them, are you ready to heal? And spirit said, they can't say sure, they can't say yeah. Like if it was not a yes, it was a no. And I remember being like, well, that's kind of a lot, like spirit, and spirit's like, no, it's very serious now. Like people need to be ready to heal. And definitely there are people out there who still need to kind of circle that drain and to voice that problem without discovering a solution. But we all know that when you're around that type of energy for a very long time, it begins to even drain those around us. And so we're really encouraged right now to stay above this victim martyr spiral and to not voice a problem without just having the willingness to discover the solution. And that doesn't mean we need to be like fix oriented or that we need to suppress the emotions that are coming up. It just means not, from spirit's perspective, kind of wallowing in it and creating an identity from that. Spirit said that problems voiced without the willingness for a solution will create a swamp of discontent in this new energy. And that does not sound delightful to me. I've been to some swamps of discontent. So we're encouraged instead to shift our complaints to observations. And this is something that came up in the maternal line of my family when we realized we were all complaining all the time. And we decided to turn our complaints into observations. And it's very amusing when you start turning your complaints into observations. It becomes quite humorous. And it also shifts the frequency and the energy. So that is something that spirit offers here, to shift complaints to observations and expectations to preferences. And this was a wisdom that came through a moon circle that a friend of mine hosted several months ago, where it came through from spirit that expectations lead to suffering and disappointment. And if we can change or shift our expectations to having preferences, preferences let the multiverse know what our will and our intent is, but yet it allows space for actually what is highest and best to take place. So we're no longer blocking the energy. There was a question here, and this kind of feels like I'm moving from one piece to the next, but spirit had me link this in the reading. And the first part is in all capital letters, you are protected, period, no matter what. And the question was, how do we stay out of these weaponized fourth dimensional or lower vibrations? And all I heard from spirit in that moment was, floor is lava. And my daughter plays this all the time with parkour, where you can't touch the ground. And I played it a ton as a kid. I don't know if you did as well, but you were not allowed to touch the floor, or of course, you were on fire. And here, spirit is speaking to that as a lower vibration. The floor is lava, being that soup of energies that has been created. But if we are staying in tune with what our body needs, and specifically our light body, if we can be in meditation with that, through whatever form feels good to us each day, that is going to help us always be above this victim martyr weave and also these weaponized vibrations or these weaponized frequencies. And the reference here, spirit said that we are maintaining our vibration and our high energy frequency, which allows us to rise above any distortions in our physical environment. This is health at every level: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And so we're coming out of this time of healing where we may have had, some emotional issues or some mental stuff come up, or maybe we've had some severe physical problems, or been, dealing with multiple timelines that aren't making sense to our human self. All of these are now integrating so that we begin to experience health at every level. And we also have to stay above fear and remember that we are protected. There's always that line, no weapon formed against the Christ shall ever prosper. So we remember that, and that allows us to kind of stay out of that lava zone and more in our hearts and souls, which are going to allow us to fully co-create what we came here to create. I'm going to take a moment and allow the floor. Okay, so we had a question that said, can you explain more about giving something 90 seconds? And in that 90 seconds, you are being present. You are simply crying if you need to cry, feeling rageful if you need to feel rage, feeling despondent or disassociated if you need to feel that. You're feeling whatever it is, you're being with it, but you're not allowing yourself to identify as it. So there's maintaining a gap between the child consciousness that's experiencing it and the parent consciousness that is witnessing it. And what I have found personally is within that 90 seconds, that flood of energy or that waterfall of emotion has the space and the expansion to move. And so it no longer needs to sit in my cells or be in my body or in my mental state in any way, because I gave it that time of release. But I didn't spend 5 weeks, pining over it or not leaving my room because of it. So there's this balance from Spirit's perspective of giving into it fully, but not giving up to it, if that makes any sense. The very first supporting energy for this theme of shifting agreements is that we need to nurture ourselves first. And I was given that vision of the oxygen mask on the plane where they always tell us, put your oxygen, on first before you assist anybody else. And how often do we try to give to others when our cup, is not yet full? And so we're really being encouraged that that is not going to work anymore. And we're going to really feel that and the effects of that burnout if we continue on that martyr spiral from Spirit's perspective. So it's time to stop overgiving to others, whether they are family, friends, or even coworkers, and instead turn our attentions inward and give ourselves what we need at this time. So often, Spirit said, and especially for women, so it's interesting that's all women on the call tonight, that in previous generations and even up until now, our worth has been found through giving to others and being in continuous outer service. And yet, Spirit says, if we do not take a step back and draw inward at this time, not only will we miss these valuable divine downloads from Spirit that are within our interior realms about the visions for our lives, but we will also feel burned out, overworked, and overextended. And Spirit says, even distant from ourselves and disassociated or withdrawn. And these are signs that we have fallen out of balance with ourselves and need more nurturing and self care. The question from Spirit tonight is, what would nurture me right now? Was it the space and time alone to restore ourselves? Is it time in nature? Is it listening to music so that we're moving out of the realms of thought and out of the collective thought matrix? Is it dancing? Is it singing? Is it writing? Is it spending time with our soul companions? What is going to nurture and nourish us most? We're encouraged to check in with ourselves. Are we being insensitive or unresponsive to our personal needs, whether they be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual? Or are we overly concerned with the demands of the world or what others need from us? Our divine energy is calling us to bring our life into balance by becoming more sensitive to our own needs and making space for ourselves without guilt or defensiveness. And that was really important from Spirit, that there's this thing that comes up the second that we make space for ourselves that's like, well, I got to make space for my guilt and defensiveness now too, because I can't just have the space, right? And so this feeling that we cannot have our worth come from the outer realms anymore. We are encouraged that if we do not respond to our needs first, we will not have the quantum charge or the energetic fuel to love or assist anyone else. And so the shadow of this energy is believing that it's better to always give than receive, and refusing to recognize that when giving and receiving are in balance, life actually flourishes for all. So Spirit gave examples here, like the refusal of a compliment or the refusal of help or assistance from another when offered. I know that's like one of mine all the time. It's like, oh, I got it. It's like, why do you gotta got it? Like, just let somebody help you. Refusal to accept joy, refusal to believe that we deserve joy, refusal to accept payment when someone offers it or resources from another. So these are all things that Spirit is saying that we can now be open to, because we now know that being in the flow of giving and receiving is actually that which nourishes all. And Spirit said, through this nurturing self care on all levels, we will allow ourselves to advance forward in life at this time. I'm going to open the floor and leave it for comments and questions, or yeah, anything that wants to come through.
This is Heather. I wonder if you can touch on maybe just some basic ideas of who to give your time and energy to and who not to.
Yes. Okay. So I was the person who gave my time and energy literally to everything and everyone, and was always burnt out from that. And when I finally surrendered it, it was actually the Mother Spirit who came through, and she said, just take who I send to you. Like, just take who crosses your path once you've made this agreement with me. So talking about shifting agreements, I shifted my agreement from just being in service all the time to being in service only to that which the Mother Spirit brought to me. And because I said to her, yes, I will do, like, that sounds great. Like, only that. I then know whatever is in my path is from the Mother Spirit. So then I have to be completely present with, if I'm standing behind a dumpster at 10 o'clock at night and the Holy Spirit wants to start talking to me through a person, I can't be like, okay, I'll see you later. Like, I'm there because I said to the Mother Spirit, bring me that who needs me and who I need. I always say, let me be a blessing and let others be a blessing to me. And that's, part of my prayer every day, is that there's always that giving and receiving. And I spent a good portion of my life only in the giving role. So changing that perspective, changing that agreement, and allowing it to be who the Mother Spirit brought to me was a moment of grace for me, because it allowed me to just trust then that whomever crossed my path was no longer part of like a wounded part of myself that I was attracting, but instead, that which was truly in the flow of truly divine giving and receiving. Let me know if that makes any sense.
Yes, thank you.
And I welcome anyone else who has other ways that they have reached this. The next piece of the transmission from Spirit was encouraging us to come to the edge. And that's not very comfortable. Whenever you've been up very high and you are on the edge of something, that's when it all gets really real. And yet we're encouraged to take this leap of faith right now, to have courage, to overcome our fear and accept risk. And as soon as I had written accepting risk, the song, I was listening to like crazy Scottish music, it's accelerated and crescendoed. And I was like, great, Spirit. So Spirit acknowledging and confirming that we have to overcome whatever fear we're having and accept risk right now that we might not normally accept, that we are facing the unknown, and that it's really the only choice that we have if we want to progress. Spirit says, what would you do if reality as you knew it was turning on its head? Would you continue on with your mental plans, or would you allow Spirit to place you in a new reality where you will always be right place, right time? And this feeling from Spirit that we do not know what is ahead. And if we are making plans right now, it goes back to that making plans, God laughing. that we are moving into a new place and new space where the way things were will no longer make sense. And the lyrics here, because this actually came through in the car while I was driving for this reading, was because finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Yeah, finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. And this feeling from spirit that this is a soul revolution. This is not a violent revolution. This is a revolution from the inside that then shifts the entirety of the outside. And we're encouraged, it is okay to be afraid. In fact, it's perfectly acceptable and normal to be afraid during this, because not only has the personality self never experienced this, but the soul has never experienced this. And so we're encouraged to take the risk right now that is not calculated and to feel the exhilaration as we ready ourselves for this leap of faith. Spirit is present and we can let go of our fear. It's time to listen to our heart and soul, not our heads. That the mind cannot navigate the waters of where we are collectively moving in consciousness. We must step into the unfamiliar so that we may find our miracles. This is not the time to play it safe, but to take big risks. We are discovering treasure beyond our wildest dreams, and we do not need to know what form it will take. The essence is divinely intelligent and knows exactly how to emerge in our physical and material reality in its highest and most serving form. Spirit is delivering a much better vision and version of prosperity than we could ever imagine. It is time to take the step into the unknown. It will be worth it. So we're really encouraged right now. If we're being faced with a personal decision that makes us go like, is this, I feel like maybe don't have any ground beneath my feet here. Spirit is encouraging that there may be light ground beneath our feet. There might be a weave that has, sewn itself together through light that is ready to support us if we are simply ready to take the leap. So I'm going to open it if there is anything that anyone wants to share regarding this aspect. The final supporting energy tonight for us shifting our agreements is that there's a message coming from the realms of the divine, and we are assured a positive outcome. That the anxious wait is nearly over and a time of celebration is at hand for anyone who chooses to have eyes to see and ears to hear. And so what spirit means by that is we need to be willing to see beyond the physical realm. We need to have an open heart, because it's the open heart that actually allows the eyes to see and the ears to hear. It allows us to get those spirit activations in the weave. And we're encouraged that issues of major importance in our life right now will shift to a positive outcome, and that which supports a life affirming consciousness. So if there has been any aspect of our life that has been falling in that life denying consciousness, whether that be within ourselves or within those around us, spirit is saying that we can actually be assured of a shift here and a positive outcome into this life affirming consciousness. It will require us taking our focus off the outer world and instead going inward and wearing that outer world as a loose cloak that we're able to remove at will. And what spirit means by this, and what Christ really meant, I feel, by this, is that we can't make the outer world our God. We cannot make what we are seeing with our physical eyes our priority. We have to remember that we are creating from the interior realms first, and that when we are present, we are shifting that outer reality in every moment, in every miracle, because we are staying within that presence. So when we start to feel weighted down by the world, when we start to feel like we've expended or overextended, the way Spirit was speaking to, we can imagine just taking off that coat, taking it off, and turning inward. And Spirit says all the answers are found within this place. It is rich with life force, vitality, joy, and wisdom that can only be received from the divine within. We are forever held in this embrace, so trust and take the leap. So we go back to the beginning here of this shifting agreements. And Spirit is saying there isn't a harmony of opinion right now, and that's okay. But it is time for us to have a discussion and to make new arrangements, because the systems that we are used to are not going to be in place the way that they have been, and the way that they, have been for the way that we grew up. And so we're really being encouraged to be in that expanded thinking, to be one of the visionaries, to be one of the scouts of this new territory, these places where we get to live freely in our physical form, because we have done the inner work that we would normally have to die and cross to the other side to do. We get to now do this here. And so I will end it on that note and bring it around to anything that you guys want to bring up. And if not, we can close it out here on the recording and just talk for a couple minutes after the call. Grateful for you guys too. Thank you for all the chat comments. Thank you for being here and just like creating this space where we can do these shifts for all of us. Just to wrap up what Spirit's bringing through, we're ending this time of healing. We're shifting our personal and collective agreements, overhauling the financial, academic, religious, entertainment, government, the military. All of these are going to shift into something that serves the soul. And we can trust that as these shifts take place, that while they may be uncomfortable, if we remember to nurture ourselves first, we will have that overflowing cup, and we will be able to be in service to those who the Mother Spirit brings across our path. It will require us coming to the edge of what feels comfortable for us and taking some leaps into territories that we may never have felt comfortable doing before. And yet Spirit encourages there are divine messages here that we do not want to miss. And so if we are willing to meet God halfway, we can assured that not only will we be embraced, but we will be launched into the next beautiful blueprint and vision of our lives. So thank you all so much for joining me tonight. We will have a little bit of a talk afterward. Just like to take a few seconds to close the space here, and I will bring us forward. Really appreciate you all being on the call. Your presence, your chats, your comments and questions, your sharings really mean a lot to me. I feel it just adds so much to the transmission that Spirit is bringing forth. I honor you and I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully next week, Sanctuary, and definitely after this call. Thank you again.